Coffee
My
filter?
Oh,
Okay, great. A coffee filter. That's a good one.
alright.
Let's see. I don't know if I have anything that's a cone,
Yeah, I don't have anything.
but I do have a cylinder. So I have a sand timer that's in the shape of a cylinder.
How about the lampshade? What is that?
Could be, because a lampshade could be anything, right? But if you're just talking about the circular one, that's definitely in that shape, right? Sometimes without the top and the bottom, but the side shape is definitely in the shape of a cylinder.
One is available. We've been trying to reach you concerning your card.
What was the last one? Sphere. Let's see. Did anybody find a sphere in their house?
Oh, there's one here, a pencil holder.
Okay. Could be a pencil holder, could be anything really, right? Because people can get really creative. So what we're gonna see, we're gonna do this one. This one is just volume, but when we go back to the other book, we're gonna see that like we saw the tent, the earrings, you know, whatever it is that you're making can be in any shape. So we're just taking a moment to look around our house for how many different shapes there are. And sometimes there's a lot of different shapes, just even in the ceiling or in the floor pattern, in the molding, in one thing. So like if you look, I'm looking at a lampshade right now, that's like a cube in a way, but then it has a print on top of it. So you can have multiple layers, but you're just trying to pay attention to what shapes you see on a regular basis so that it makes more sense. And like we said, geometry is only about 30% of your test, but it overlaps sometimes with the algebra. So for this one, this is page 370. We said to take a look at the vocabulary. So I'm just gonna read that one off and you can check and see how you did. And then we'll go over the skill review at the bottom. So number one, a 3D shape with one end that ends in a point is a cone.
Cone, okay, got that.
Number two, a cylinder has two equally sized circular ends.
I got that.
The base of a cone is a circle.
I got that.
A frustum is a cone with its top cut off. And actually, I did have that one yesterday because I did go get some froyo. And it was in a little, almost like that shape bowl. So where it kind of like tapers down a little bit, like it could have gone into a cone. Number five, the point of a cone is the apex. And number six, all of the points on the outside surface of a sphere are the same distance from the shape's center. So this was just a little bit of vocabulary. Coming down to the skill review, did everybody have a chance to do these five?
Almost, yeah.
So what we're gonna do then is, I'm just gonna do the first one, the multiple choice one. You can tell me what you got, and then we will separate for the last four, just to make sure that we're picking out the right formula and, you know, talking out step 1, 2, 3, or 4. So number one, which of the following values represents the volume of a 3D shape?
C.
Yep, C, because it's the only one with the 3 as the exponent. So this is just, again, this would be like an easier question like we saw. Do you know if it should be square meters or cubic meters, right? So we're saying that if it's 2-dimensional area, it should be square. If it's 3-dimensional volume, it should be cubed. So now number 2, there's a can there of some organic tomatoes, and the diameter is 8 centimeters, and the height is 12 centimeters. So I'm just gonna separate you into the breakout rooms. And I'm just gonna put everybody in the same room because we only have 6 people so far. Hopefully that's not too much. And just say what you think or how you think you should go about doing the problem.
Oh. My name?
602.
Oh,
I know my calculator's probably off because it's on my phone. But all right.
5, let me see. 12 times
that equals to
602.88.
Yes, I got that.
602.88.
Okay, because
Equals to, is it pi r squared h, the formula?
pi times R2 times H. And
Okay.
so
What's
the
the pi and r
pi
squared?
is 3.14.
3.14. And what's the radius?
The radius is 4 because the diameter is 8.
8.
Oh, so that means 4 times 4 is 16.
Yeah. Yep.
And the height is 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of them together is
So you do like pi times 16 times 12,
yeah.
and then you get 192 times pi, and then you get 602.88.
Yeah, that's what I got.
602.88. Oh, wow. Awesome. Our group is
Right.
awesome.
Right. Right.
All right, welcome back. So, what did you get for number 2?
602.88.
That is correct. So now even this, you can, it depends if you want to, everyone's going to might have a different amount because of using the pi symbol or using 3.14 or using 3.1415. So you can also say about 603 if you need to round up, you know. Your test is normally more specific. And again, your test is multiple choice. So you're going to see the one that's closest to that answer, but that's correct. You needed radius, and then you needed the right formula, which was pi r squared h. So now taking a look at number 3, it is this 8 ball. So it's saying that it has a radius of 1 1/8 of an inch. What is its volume to the nearest cubic inch?
Got it.
So now, as a little
I
clue,
didn't get that one. I didn't get that one.
this is what I would do. So can you see the calculator?
Yes.
Okay. Remember yesterday we were talking about some of these with sphere and with cone is starting to use some fractions, but rather than use the fraction, if you have the calculator, you can just use division, right? So it's saying 1/8 of an inch or 1 1/8 of an inch. So what I would say is 1 divided by 8, and that gives you 0.125. So this is when we were looking at decimals, fractions, percent to see what is equivalent. So you could either say 1/8 or you could say 0.125, right? Because you're using a calculator, I think it's easier just to use the decimal. So now what you're saying is, this is the radius, would be 1 and 1.25. I'm sorry, 1.125. So does everybody understand that?
Yes, I got that one now.
So I think that that's easier. So let me flip to the whiteboard. So that means that if you're going to use the formula for the volume of a sphere, this is a lot of fractions, right? It's already 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. So now if we know what the radius is, that 1.125, we can say that the volume is 4/3 times pi times 1.125 cubed. Then I would do that 1.125 cubed first. Well, let me. So this is what you're really looking at. If we memorize that pi is 3.14, and then we just don't want to use the fractions and memorize that 4/3 is about 1 1/3 or 1.333, then we can just use the calculator the whole time. So this is the real order of operations that you're going to do. Can you hear me? I'm getting a little sign that my internet is blinking out. So you're going to do the 1.333. Well, first you're going to start with the cubing. 1.125 to the 3rd power times 3.14 times 1.333. So, and I sometimes I use the pi symbol, sometimes I use the 3.14, but you're saying that it's about, because they want to go to the nearest cubic inch. So you can say it's about 6, that it's 5.96, 5.9596, whatever number you got on your calculator, you're just rounding it up a little bit. So if you have the calculator available, I would use it if you think it's going to be faster to convert any kind of fractions. Because again, fractions are really from younger, you're introduced to it in elementary school. So the test is not really about the fraction. It just might be that they're throwing 1 or 2 fractions on the test. So if you can convert the fraction to a decimal, it's going to move faster if you have the calculator available. So any questions about that one?
Oh, that was very explanatory. Yeah.
Okay, so that was just if you're familiar with an 8-ball being a sphere, right? You're pulling out the right formula. So now this, the next one. This one is telling you it's shaped like an enormous cylinder. So an apartment building in England has 25 stories and is shaped like an enormous cylinder. The building is 81 meters tall and 32 meters wide. What is the building's volume to the nearest meter? So now I'm going to put you in a group for this one.
Wait.
Okay.
And what?
It's a sphere.
Look.
Building. Oh, the volume to the nearest.
So would 32 be in half?
It says here the building's 81 tall and the 32 wide.
Okay.
It's 32 wide.
Swear to God, y'all be getting organic shit.
Welcome back. Welcome back. How's it going, Kaven?
All right.
Did you get the answer for this one?
Huh?
Did you get the answer?
No. Not top of my head, no.
So what were you thinking?
Maybe I can do volume with maybe,
Oh,
yeah, I know.
yeah, I got this.
Yeah, so your which formula did you pick out?
Well,
Pi r square h.
Yes, so you're just going with the building that they said is cylinder. So you're gonna do pi r squared h. So let me pull that one. So now you just need the radius. So once you figure out what shape you have based on the story, you want to pick out that formula and just start with that. So you're going to start with pi r squared h, but now you're looking for the r and you're looking for the h. So this one has an extra part in the story because it's telling you that it's 25 stories, but you don't need the number 25 for anything. So that's just miscellaneous information about the apartment building. You need the fact that it's 82 meters tall. I'm sorry, 81 meters tall. And it's saying it's 32 meters wide, which means that's the diameter. So you need the number 16 because you're looking for the radius. So does that make sense, Kaven?
Oh, so that's the right answer.
So when you do the 16 squared, and then times 81, and then times 3.14, you have about 65,111-ish.
65,000, okay.
And you have the right answer. So for this one, you had to ignore the 25 number, and you had to pick out the right formula, and you had to divide the diameter in half first.
Divine.
Yeah, so when you're picking out the formula first, but then you're saying to yourself, whenever they say it's 32 meters wide, you're imagining you're measuring across the whole thing. So because you're always starting with the formula, you don't need the whole measurement, you need half. So again, you're gonna use the number 32, but only to get half. So the real number that you're multiplying is 16 times 16.
Hold on.
So you have to say to yourself, oh, 32 is the diameter. I need the radius. And now last but not least, let's take a look at this one. The owners of a shopping mall in Germany hired artists to design an enormous upside-down ice cream cone to sit on one corner of the mall's roof. The cone, made of steel, plastic, and wood, stands 12.1 meters tall and has a diameter of 5.8 meters. What is the cone's volume to the nearest meter? So now this one, go back to the whiteboard. We're talking about the cone. And what we're saying is that the cone is 1/3 of the cylinder. So it's the same formula that we were just using, except it has 1/3 in front. So 1/3 pi r squared times the height. So what you have to say is, we already said, say 1/3 is 0.333, and you can use as many threes as you want.
3.14.
So now you have to figure out what is the radius.
8.
If they tell you that the diameter is 5.8, how much would the radius be?
So
2.9.
2.9.
so it,
And they're telling you the height.
12.1.
So now this is what you're multiplying. So you're back to just doing the order of operations. The 2.9 times 2.9 comes first because you're going to do all exponents first.
8.41.
And then times the 12.1 times the pi times the 1/3. You have about how much? Now this one's telling you to round up to the nearest meter.
38.
8.4. So it'd be 8.4.
We have 36. 36. Let me do it again because I got two numbers. First one.
That 36.6, but
So if you start with the 2.9,
Uh-huh.
Huh?
you're gonna start with the exponent.
Yeah. We got the 333.
21.102.
Then you're saying times the height.
So 106.
Oh, ain't like that.
Times pi. Times 0.333. You should have 106 point something
43, yeah.
Got
that
it.
you're rounding up. So if you have 106 or 107, depending on if you use the pi symbol, it'll go up a little bit higher, then you're correct. So any questions about this one?
Thank you.
So don't forget when you're using the formula to do the squaring or cubing first, because you're just doing the order of operations. So these 5 questions were about volume. The other assignment that we have, we're just going to take a look at the formula for sphere, and then we'll be working on this one tomorrow. So it says the 29th, we're back to the other textbook that we started with, but we are coming to the end of the lesson. This book was doing volume and surface area at the same time. So we already looked at the volume of a sphere. So that's just like the 8-ball question, or the other questions that even might have been like half of a sphere, like they said about the water containers on the highway or the gas containers on the highway. You might have to figure out the volume of the sphere, but then divide it in half if it's only like a hemisphere, if it's only half of a sphere. So the other formula that's new is surface area. So these are the two we were just doing. Volume is the 4/3 pi r cubed. And we're saying rather than use 4/3, we can just say 1.333. The surface area is 4 times pi times r squared. So what is pi r squared? What formula was pi r squared?
Circle?
Right, it was a circle. So I'm gonna flip back over to that one. This is why we were saying that the most important formulas to memorize are the 2-dimensional ones. So if you think back to here, area of a circle was pi r squared. That's just the 2-dimensional shape. Now that they're talking about the surface area of a sphere, it's 4 times the flat shape. So you can say to yourself, you recognize the pi r squared as just the flat circle area. Now the surface area, you basically have 4 of those, thinking of maybe like up and down, left and right. But once you start making the full sphere, it's 4 times pi r squared. So now we're just going to take a look at this one. They have this one that has a radius of 8 feet. And example number 9 is just saying, find the volume and the surface area of the sphere shown. So first is volume. That's the one we were just looking at. You're picking out the formula first, and then it's already telling you that the radius is 8 feet. So all you're doing is replacing the r with 8. and then you have to do the order of operations. So they're saying 8 to the third power is 512. And then you have 1.333 and pi. So they have about 2,144.7 cubic feet. For the surface area, you have the same number, but now you're only going to say r squared. So you're saying you're putting the 8 in replace to replace r, and then you're saying 8 times 8 is 64, and then you say times pi times 4. And the first thing they did was 64 times 4. As you can see, the next line, they left pi. Then they said 256 times pi is about 804.2. So in this textbook and in the exercise book and on your test sometimes, pi is still in the answer. So you just want to make sure that if you notice that A, B, C, D, all of the answers have pi in it, then you're going to do it this way, where you multiply everything else first and don't multiply pi yet, because that's how you're going to see what your answer is. So now what we're doing for tomorrow is there's a little bit different vocabulary, because this one had pyramid in this textbook. So there's 6 vocabulary words, but then we're at the skill review. So what we're going to do is just take a look at one of them, well, maybe 2 of them right now, and then we're going to do the rest for tomorrow. So you can work on it today, and if you have any questions, you can send me text messages, or you can work on it in the morning tomorrow before we have class, and we'll go over them. But let's see how many we can get done in a couple of minutes. So number 1 says, what is the surface area of a box whose base measures 11 inches by 6 inches and whose height is 4 inches? So now with a question like this one, it's been a while because we've been working on this for a couple of days, but you're going all the way back to the beginning where they're talking about surface area of a box. So this is what you have to imagine, is that they're talking about the top, the bottom, the front, the back, left, and the right. So it might help to draw it out if you want to, or you might just want to look at how they did in example number 2. When you get the measurements, figure out what is the bottom measurement, what is the top measurement, what is the left, what is the right, what is the front, what is the back, because they're talking about the surface area. So you need to add up the 6 different areas.
Okay, so 11 plus
So take a minute to work that one out.
4.
11.
5.
Right.
This is the homework that I did instead of the other one, so I'm done with it.
You said this is the one you need, Zoila?
No, I did this as
okay.
a homework instead of the other one.
Oh, okay. So you're ready then.
I'm ready for this one, but I was lost in the other one.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, I did put this one up first, but then I put the other one up just to focus on volume, because some people didn't get the 80, 90, 100 on the math is fun. So we took a little detour. So now you can draw this idea, or you can just think about the measurements. So I just thought about the measurements.
I draw the idea.
So you have one that's 11 by 6, but it's a box. So you're also going to have the 6, times the height, and you're also going to have the width, the 11 times the height.
11.
So those are the 3 different things that you're thinking about, and you can either say, what's 11 times 6?
66.
What is 6 times 4?
24.
And then the 11 times 4.
44.
So now this would represent the 3 different sides of the box. So if you were to add up those,
11 times.
260.
now you're multiplying another, you're doubling that. right? Because you know you have 6 sides. So it's up to you. You can either do one side and then say times 2 as you're going along. Because like we said, this is going to be the top and the bottom, the left and the right, and the front and the back. So you can either figure out just the top, just the left, and just the back, and then double that, or you can double as you're going along.
Times 2 equals 268.
Yep, 268. So that is the surface area.
Yeah. Huh? Was it 8?
But let's see, calculator. If you just did 11 times 6 times 4, you're gonna get B, 264, right? So this is how your test is more like this, that the multiple choice is gonna have a couple of answers that could work with the numbers, but you have to make sure that you're picking out the right formula to begin with. So this one is pretty straightforward because it's saying surface area. Some of them just talk about painting, which is surface area, or decorating, beading, glitter, all of that type of stuff means you're covering it. Or even the one that's about the tent, like we talked about yesterday. If they say you're putting up a canvas tent, then you're putting up canvas for the left, the right, the front, the back, right? So like this number 6, they're just saying you're making the canvas tent. So you're still thinking about how much canvas do you need? That's more of a surface area kind of question, right? So sometimes it's straightforward, like in number 1, and then sometimes you have to read into the story. Are they talking about volume, like how much space is it taking up, or filling something up, or are they talking about decorating it, painting it, covering it with fabric in its surface area? So for number 2, a traffic cone of solid plastic has a radius of 4 inches, a slant height of 25 inches. Which expression can be used to determine how much surface area needs to be painted orange, including the base? So now this is just what formula should you pick out?
B.
B, right? So this one is just about painting the cone. So now you have the surface area is pi times the radius times the slant height plus the circle at the bottom, which is pi r squared. So instead of putting r, they put the number 4. And you have to say pi times the radius times the slant height plus pi times the radius squared. So this one, you didn't even have to come up with the answer, but you had to pick out what should the expression look like once you replace everything. So this is, again, the same thing because they're talking about painting. You don't want to do volume, you want to do surface area. So I think one more, right? Let's do number 3. Abner and his friends rolled a giant snowball with a radius of 9 inches. What was the volume of the snow in the snowball?
9 inches, right?
Yep, so the radius is 9 inches.
Will be 18
Let
times
me.
14.
So 3, 4,
B.
Which one?
Is it D?
Yep, it's D. So you've got 4/3 pi r cubed for the volume of a sphere. So in this case, they're just saying a giant snowball, and you're picking out the shape is the sphere, and you're going to change this one to 4/3, and you're putting 9 as the radius.
Whoa. Whoa.
And you have 9 times 9 times 9.
Oh, I did too. Oh, I don't know.
729.
4 over 3, 5.
So I got this. I'm not sure if I used 3.14 or the pi button, but I got 3052. So I probably used 3.14. And it also depends because we said like a third, you could say 1.3333. You can use this a couple of threes if you want. So whatever you decide to do, you want to say to yourself, if I know I'm going to use 3.14, then I'm probably a little bit low. If I know I'm going to use 1.3, I'm going to be low, as opposed to 1.333, right? I'll be a little bit higher. So even when you're looking at A, B, C, and D though, the only one that's close to that is D. So because you're going to be doing majority multiple choice, you can estimate. Like we were saying when we were in class, you can estimate a little bit to make it easier than using 4/3, just use 1.333. You can estimate what pi is and just say 3.14. So because you're doing that, you're still far away from any of the other choices. And you can feel confident, you know, with the number that you're picking out. So we did the first three. We're just gonna read number 4, but you can do this one, 4, 5, and 6. Just see how many you can do. So I'm gonna say we're just gonna do 5. So we'll go up to number 2 of the skill practice and we'll finish this skill review, but we're gonna read number 4 just to talk about it. This one is a 3D set of earrings, right? So this says Lucinda wants to make a pair of silver earrings that are shaped like cylinders. The radius will be 4 millimeters and the height will be 11 millimeters. Each cubic millimeter of silver costs 21 cents. What will be the total cost of the silver to make these earrings? So now this one is adding an extra step because once you figure out how much silver she needs, then you have to multiply it by the cost. So you want to make sure in a question like this one that you're actually answering the question. So you're going to have more than one total in your mind because you do have to figure out how much silver she needs. But that's not the question that they're asking you. So when you get that number, that this is the volume of silver, you don't want to pick that one out. Because the real question is, how much is it going to cost to get that amount of silver? So you have to make sure that then you multiply by the 21 cents. So we're going to pick up with this one tomorrow. And I'm just saying to do another 5 questions, either today or tomorrow morning. And you're still aiming to do about like 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes per question, so that it won't take you more than another like 15 minutes. So any questions?
But these prices are way too high.
You know what? Could be.
Yeah. Are these prices
for silver, right? Are they talking about gold or are they talking about silver?
I know. Are the same answers from the question?
Oh my goodness.
I
Joy was really paying attention. He's like, that is not the current rate for silver.
I know, right?
But you know, people can make their prices whatever they want because sometimes you'll look at something and it's not gold or silver and it can still cost $1,000, right? So somebody putting their name on it or making a decision about how much it's going to cost, they can say it's worth $5,000 if they want to and see who buys it. So we're going to do 4, 5, 6. And then at least 1 and 2.
All right.
4, 5, 6. Okay, I got that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So then that would leave us 6 more for Friday.
Okay.
So then after this, we're going to go back to the task exercise book that we were doing in the previous couple of days. And then those are the most challenging kinds of questions. So when we finish this is just like the textbook. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna upload the task exercise book.